Okay, so Rising Vibe is a learning, development and change business that focuses on emotion to drive business performance. And Calling Out the Men provides emotional support for men in the business world. And there's nothing out there for men right now. I'm going to talk to you about why that's really important. So you've seen loads of stats today. Starting young, boys more likely to be excluded from school. The suicide stat that everybody knows, that is not improving. We need to be helping men right now who are with us in pain and struggling to start to feel better. And society is telling us they want to help. However, work is the second biggest trigger to relationship breakdown for male depression. When you Google support for men in business, this is what you get. Nothing for men, all about the women. So actually, this isn't helping men at all. We are just focusing on the women. And in fact, people are now scared to talk about men in work. There's reasons why we're passionate about this. My dad is a recovering alcoholic. My son, who suffers with visual snow because of anxiety. And my friend Grant, who took his own life 7 years ago after having testicular cancer and depression. As Ruby said, they're all smiling. The stats out there will suggest that men, especially, show up in a way that's not conventional when they're not feeling good. We believe people look a certain way, but they don't. So how do we start to recognise how men especially are really feeling in business? Toxic masculinity, a really unhelpful label we hear a lot. And these words are words used by people in business to describe the toxic male. Yet I've worked with many women who display these, myself included. So the fact there is a male frame, again, is another slur against the fellas. This is our model. We talk about the emotions behind the behaviour. High vibe, low vibe, not good, not bad, not right, not wrong. There is a lot of focus on high vibe being positive and motivated, but the low vibe emotions are as valid, but not as embraced. The ones that are particularly pertinent to this are these here. These are the emotions that drive the kind of behaviours that the toxic male is labelled as. Now, when you are low vibe, you are not feeling good. So we need to challenge these behaviours, but with absolute compassion and care, which isn't really happening. This visual represents a lot of the dynamic that we see in business, with the kind of toxic male at the top and the anxious disempowered at the bottom. Both of these need to be challenged. The top to step into a vulnerable space, the bottom to step into the power. When both of these are challenged at the same time, the seesaw will become balanced. There's a misconception that accessing vulnerability equals weakness and that stepping into power is aggression. It is not true. That is not the case. Someone has to go first, but there are not many cultures right now that are supporting it. In the organisations we are working with, the culture actually not only doesn't support the balanced seesaw, it is enabling the unhealthy complementary dynamic that I've showed you. So usually with men at the top and women at the bottom, actually. So culture needs to provide the space for people to role model different things. Now, we massively support women. We massively support gender balance, gender parity. But what we know is that women really, really want male role models too. And by supporting the men, we will absolutely 100% support the women. We got some of our Rising Vibe businessmen together before the summer to talk about emotion in business, and these were the key pain points that came up for them, from not being able to use words to describe emotion, to seeing emotion as weak, and to being afraid to ask for help. Now, talking is really important, and we talked about that stuff, and it's okay to talk, we buy into it, but talking isn't enough, especially for men. The what next is usually missing, and what we have found is that a lot of men that we're working with, in fact, stay more stuck when all they're doing is talking. So the men are wired differently, the brain is different. So much more action processing, much more physically impulsive, want to get into problem solving, and genuinely struggle to find the words to connect to emotions. So when it comes to talking about emotions and feelings, it's not so natural for them. So in summary, men are struggling. There is nothing to support men with emotion in business at all. I'm one of many who've got men who are in pain in their life. Toxic masculinity is just low vibe. We need to bring the seesaw into balance, and someone has got to go first. Talking isn't enough. Calling Out the Men can help with all of this. So here's our short film.
When I look back on this film and think, you know, am I ashamed of how upset I've got? There's a part of me, the male part of me, that says, yeah, man up.
Men have feelings too, don't feel guilty, because it's a human feeling, it's not just a male or a female thing.
Work is the second biggest trigger point for male depression, behind relationship breakdown.
The reality is emotion is actually our greatest strength.
I'm going to take the first step, despite what certain people will think. If we're brave enough to put it out there and say, you know what, this is me, this is what I struggle with, but I can still do my job well, then, you know, that makes a big difference.
Are you ready to support the men in your business? We're looking for role model organisations to deliver this with us. Calling out the men, because when men feel better, they do better.
Oh, she's probably got me. She's probably got me on that one.